I think to a certain extent it requires discipline, right? Because if you think back to what I was referring to earlier about the way that we operate as a society when it comes to marketing and promotion of business, right? We are very much focused on tactics, on if any business owner and I we were talking, and I would say, what do you do for marketing? Their answer isn't, well, I sit down at the beginning of each year and I plot out where I would like to be at the end of the year, and then I consider all of the different means by which I can get there, and which type of customer is going to be most profitable to me, and what assets I have to allocate to be able to attract and convert those specific types of customers. Oh, and which product or service I have the largest margin on, and therefore how I can put those out into the market and convert the most people around those, right? Nobody's thinking about that stuff. The answer is, oh, I do Facebook ads.
Welcome to Gratitude Geek, the relationship marketing podcast, helping DIY marketers find your micro influencer magic so you attract raving fans and repeat buyers. I'm your host, Kandas Rodarte, and this week I'm joined by marketing strategist David Baer. David is a wine geek, theater geek, marketing geek, and when I'm done with him, he'll be a gratitude geek. He's also the host of the More Perfect Marketing podcast. He's been marketing since the 1990s, and these days works with marketing professionals to help them move from tacticians to strategists. Welcome, David.
Hey, Kandas, thank you so much for having me on. I really appreciate it.
I love that this time I get to pick your brain instead of you picking my brain. And thank you very much for having me on your show a few weeks ago. So my turn to ask you questions. So tell us your unique story. How did you get to where you are today?
Well, you mentioned that I am a theater geek and a wine geek, in addition to being a marketing geek, and that's actually my professional journey. I started out, I grew up in New York. I worked in the theater and classical music worlds, and somehow found myself moving from large theater production to large event production. And I ventured into trade shows in the food and wine world, and I became what became a marketing role at a wine importer, producing large tastings, professional tastings, where we would have 1,000 people coming into some beautiful old bank in Manhattan that got converted into an event reception space. I would coordinate all of the winemakers coming in from around the globe, all of the logistics of their wine being shipped, the glasses being rented, the room being laid out, and all of the post-event parties as well, which that's a lot of fun, particularly if you know what kind of wine was at that event. And that really brought me into the world of marketing as I know it today, even though I had spent a lot of time doing marketing of events, promoting theater and classical music subscription sales through email back in the 1990s. I really didn't take the deep dive into understanding marketing and understanding the psychology until I got into the wine business, and ultimately moved me out here to Portland, Oregon, where I opened up my own marketing agency for Facebook ads for wineries back in 2011. And there's more that we'll cover, but that's sort of the history of how I got from where I began in the theater world to the marketing world today.
I love how small your niches are. I love it. Facebook ads for wineries.
Totally.
So dig out, because you got us here at the very beginning. Tell us about the importance of having a very small and unique niche.
Oh, it is so amazingly helpful in communicating your value, in communicating the differentiation that you have. Because look, I spend my days, as you mentioned earlier, working with marketing agencies, and it's crazy how many marketing agencies who know this stuff still cast a very, very wide net. This morning, I was talking to a web designer who specializes in different industries, has excelled at working on projects in very specific industries. But when you get to his website, it's bland and boring and super generic in general. And he doesn't even mention those industries. We can go down, we can spend our entire time talking about the reasons for, benefits of, and sort of logistics around niching. But I'll let you ask the next question and we'll see if that makes sense.
I'm going through a rebranding, right? I've been doing it for like a year now, but I've been going through a rebranding, and I recently rewrote my pitch, my one-liner to I help solopreneurs get shit done, because it's who I am, and it's what I do, and it's easy to say, and people go, huh? But so by changing all of that, it really has helped me focus, right?
Yeah.
Am I talking to the right people here? Well, if you own a corporation, I'm probably not going to be able to help you. Though I could, but I'm not, that's not who I want to help. So yeah, by not niching down, by his website being so general and so I can help anybody, he's not doing himself any favors, because when the the guy who sells the widgets sees that he also made the website for the other guy who sells the widgets that are just like that, and he goes to the website and says, oh, well, maybe he's not the right web designer. You have to niche, and you have to have case studies. That's probably something else that you can talk about as case studies.
Yeah, let me say one more thing about niching before we move on to case studies, which is that niching is all about positioning your business, yourself, if you're a solopreneur, positioning yourself in the eye of the prospect, okay? It does not mean that you can't do a whole bunch of stuff that you aren't saying in your marketing, right? So this guy who I won't get specific, but it might be working with lawyers very effectively and doing a lot of work in the legal space. He can also accept website jobs for restaurants, but his outbound marketing and his market positioning in general talks about legal websites in order to attract more of that business that he knows he can differentiate himself most effectively around. And so this leads to the question that you ask about case studies. Well, that's the kind of stuff that you use to support the positioning that you want to claim in the eye of the market in general, right? So if I am in the business, which I happen to be, of helping marketing agencies transition to trusted advisors by working strategically rather than tactically, well, I'm going to share case studies about my clients or my licensees, we're in a licensing business model, who have gone through that process and the benefit that they have derived having put that into place in their business.
What's the difference between licensee and
franchise?
Franchise. That's what I'm looking for. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you for pulling the word out of my head.
Well, it's really just more than anything a legal category. So franchising, think of the most classic franchises that we all know of, like fast food restaurants, right? The idea behind franchising is that there is a brand that exists and you are purchasing or renting the rights to use that brand and follow their process under their brand name. Okay. With licensing, I don't have the requirement for my clients that they use my brand, only that they are utilizing the systems, the sort of the approach that we teach them and the assets that we provide them.
Oh, so you're giving them tools and they can call those tools whatever they want.
In fact, I encourage them to, because part of their positioning is that they are basically taking our stuff and making their own version of it. And they're licensing the right to do that.
Okay.
I'll give you a quick example. An agency that focuses in the dental industry, right? That licensee is doing something dramatically different from my licensee who is a high-ticket business coach who's using the same exact content, but working in a completely different not just the industry, but a different context, right? He is showing his clients how to change operationally and sort of mindset stuff in the way that they operate their business. My dental agency, person, she is focusing on how do we create systems within dental practices.
Completely different things with
Mhm.
the same tool set.
Exactly.
So you can use a table saw to make cabinets, or you can use a table saw to make beds.
This is true, and probably
Yeah.
a lot of other things too.
Yeah, I think I've told you before that my highly niched business before what I do now was custom furniture. We made king size beds for antique furniture collectors.
I remember that.
Yeah. So that's a niche. Did it mean that that's all we made? No. But when you niche, people find you and they see that you're the leader in that field, and then it leads to other things. Okay, so let's talk about tactics versus strategy. So you and I both actually recently interviewed the same person, Jeremy Poland, who owns DIY SEO, which is kind of like what you do. He has a system that he licenses, right? So and his system is all about inbound links, gathering inbound links, and that's tactical. It's tactics, right? It's a tactic. It's ways to do this, but strategy wasn't involved in his. We didn't talk about strategy at all during his interview because it's not involved in his process. You have to already have your strategy before you can do the tactics, right? So talk to me about that.
Yeah. Okay. Well, let's try to talk a little bit about the definition, the difference between these two. Strategy is really all about all right, I am at point A and I want to get to point B. And what are all of the things that I need to consider, both my internal capabilities, my assets, my whatever, my team, my budget, stuff like that. What about the external influences like competition and the marketplace, etc.? And that then gives me the context in which I can decide on the tactics I choose to employ to get from point A to point B. Now, I want to clarify one thing. All of the tactics that exist, well, there is a strategic approach to using each of those tactics, which is separate from the overarching strategy, right? So Jeremy has this brilliant approach to getting backlinks that is overlooked by many other people in the search engine optimization world. And it's a cleverly plotted out and strategically conceived and deployed approach, but it's not a strategy on its own. It is a tactic.
Yes. So let's talk about creating your strategy for marketing, like foundationally, baby steps. How do you create your marketing strategy?
All right. This is baby steps is going to be tough here because we can go deep, but I will try. And so let's go back to that sort of framework that I gave of you want to get from point A. What we often will refer to, we came across this really great book. If you Google the primes, I think it may even be at theprimes.com. And this was a major consulting firm that works in large corporate and government structures, and they came up with this very simple concept. Did I get the website wrong? Anyway, they came up with this really great concept.
Dude, you're making me put my glasses on.
Sorry.
Oh, I spelled it wrong. That's what I get for trying to type it in. I've lost the E. Hold on. Let's just look it up and make sure that it is the primes for the listeners.
Anyway,
go ahead.
So they came up with this concept about how to talk about strategy, and it's very much what I just described, which is look at your current situation, what they refer to as the as-is state, and your future situation, which they call the to-be state. And then you have to consider all of those influencing elements, in addition to which I didn't mention earlier, what's at stake? What's at stake if you do make these adjustments? What's at stake if you don't? Right. And so this is a way to think about how to approach things strategically. It's almost like a litmus test, right? If I take this tactic and I put it into practice. What is going to happen? What isn't going to happen? How am I going to achieve the thing that I want to achieve? Is this going to be the best option? Is it going to be the second best option? Are there other things that I really should prioritize above this? Right? Those are all the types of questions that most businesses don't think about when they think about marketing. And we can go, down the path of why.
Well, most people, when it comes to marketing, they just want to do what everybody else is doing. Everybody's on TikTok, so I must have to be on TikTok.
That is very common. Very, very common. And there's a problem in the way that the marketing industry, marketing and advertising, is bought, sold, thought about, which is all about tactics, right? So if you think about who sells marketing is sold almost always by somebody who specializes in a particular tactic, whether it's the newspaper that's coming to you to say, take some, ad placement in our paper, or an agency that happens to specialize, as I did, in Facebook ads, right? They're coming to you saying, I have a solution for your problem. And it is not typically, let's pull back the curtain on your business, think about how to prioritize stuff. It's rather, I have the solution to your problem, and it is, search engine optimization with backlinks, or it is, relationship building, with direct mail, cards and things like that, right? All of these things are great solutions in the right circumstances. In the wrong circumstances, well, it's a waste, and applied incorrectly, it's also a waste. And that's really why it's important to step back and figure out, okay, well, what am I actually trying to achieve? Where am I trying to go? Now let's think about what I should use to get there.
Well, and with strategy, it's long term, right? So when you are planning your strategy, you have to have a long-term vision, because the tactics take time. And you do a tactic and you're not going to necessarily get immediate results. I'm thinking of my own personal history. My husband and I launched our business. We were pregnant, and we were trying to figure out what to do. And we bought a list of homes in a lakefront property, homes. And we sent out a flyer to those homes, and nothing happened. Crickets. And then we pivoted. We went to a large furniture store chain, and we started making furniture for the furniture store chain. And then 9 months or a year later, after we pivoted to something else because the tactic that we tried didn't work, we started getting phone calls about the flyer. People had been holding on to them until they were ready. So because we didn't have a strategy, we were just throwing darts at the board and seeing what stuck. We had to adapt to the results from something that we hadn't planned, we hadn't strategized about. So there's an example of why you need strategy.
Well, and you may not have known at the outset that the flyers were or weren't going to work, but what you may have done differently was known that, okay, we're using the flyers and we're testing, and here's what we're looking for. And based on what we receive or what we don't receive as a result of that test, here's the next tweak that we're going to make. Now, with the flyers getting no response, you didn't have a lot of data to inform the next step there. But let's say you sent out flyers, and out of 100 flyers, you got 2 calls, right? And the 2 calls, one of them turned into somebody who bought, and one of them turned into somebody who was confused about what you offered because the flyer wasn't clear. Well, that's helpful, because now we can go back and send another 100 flyers out, adjusting it for clarity around the who and the what and the why, right? That is a strategic approach that I think most businesses don't really take the time to think through in advance or act on when they see results other than ideal results.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And that was the thing. It was a brand new business, and we were throwing darts at the wall. We didn't have a strategy at the time. That was, Jesus, do I admit that I was 25 years ago? Yeah, okay, I admit it. Okay, so we understand that we need the strategy. So talk about come back to baby steps. Understand it's a solopreneur who may not be able to do A/B testing because they don't have the capabilities of it. They don't have enough of an audience. But what are some of the things that they need to absolutely know before they start doing any of the tactics?
Here's what I think most people don't think about when the topic marketing comes up. Why the heck are we marketing in the first place, right? The marketing for most business owners, whether you're a one-person operation or a giant corporation, the marketing is often considered the activity you engage in to get new people to show up at your front door or your website or whatever. And I want to reframe that. Marketing is the activity that leads to revenue generation. Okay. And when you think about it that way, well, there's a heck of a lot of strategic thinking that you can put into marketing that is not necessarily let's get new customers, but it's all about let's generate more revenue, which could be from existing customers, from referred customers, could be new people, but doesn't necessarily have to be, right? It could be what else can we sell to the people who already know, like, trust, and love us and are spending money with us. Go ahead.
I was just going to say that's a great segue for client retention and appreciation.
Totally.
So I'm a huge fan of keeping the clients that you already have happy, or keeping the people that are already in your network happy, or keeping the podcast guests that you've already worked with happy. So I want you to share with the audience how you felt when you got a package from me recently in the mail.
Oh, this is great. And I was about to say this as soon as you mentioned keeping podcast guests happy. So you appeared on my podcast, so podcast hosts happy, right? And as
yes.
And after you appeared, you kindly sent out a box. Actually, the box is right here under my desk. And I'm not going to open it up because it's missing something now twice over. So, but what was inside that box surprised me. Given the size of the box, it was slightly large. It felt like a three ring binder size, box. Okay, I opened it up, and there was this gigantic greeting card with a very familiar visual. It was actually the social share image that I sent to you to promote your appearance on my podcast. And then inside there was a lovely thank you note that was personalized to sort of acknowledge some of what we had experienced together. And on the back of it, it was a little bit of, sort of promotional information about you and how we could further the relationship. And also hidden in there under that card were a couple of really tasty brownies. I loved it, right? And not only did I love this, but I shared with you a moment ago that it was the focus of an email that I sent out to my email list talking about the broader category of this type of relationship builder, which I refer to as a shock and awe box. Now, this is one version of it. Another version of it might come, when you're in the middle of a sales process and you've already sort of, or it's a foot in the door mechanism or something else. But the point that I made in the email today, in fact, I'll try to bring this up quickly and find it. I can't. I don't have it in front of me. But it was something along the lines of how anytime I need to either utilize services like the services that you provide or refer somebody to someone who provides the services you do, that one little instance is going to keep you top of mind. Now, this is not a magnet that I'm putting up on the refrigerator. It's not some other knickknack. This is something that internally made me feel a certain way that is going to remind me, Kandas knows how to do that. I should reach out to her. And that's the utility of this, is that it really deepened my perspective of the relationship, simply by doing something unexpected and what we refer to as surprise, delight, and wow.
Yeah. And, I didn't send it to you so that you would send an email to your list. I sent you the gift as appreciation for the opportunity to be on your show. The fact that you shared it with your list is bonus.
Well, I'm a marketing guy. I use every opportunity I can to teach. So yes.
So honestly, you'll probably never hire me for anything. And I may or may not ever find anybody to refer to you. But we now are part of each other's network because I sent you some brownies.
100%.
Yeah. Yeah. But but honestly, I did. That's not why I sent the brownies.
Mm-hmm.
I sent them because I genuinely appreciated being on your show. I had a lot of fun on your show and I appreciated it. So thank you again. And thanks for being on my show.
Indeed. So,
go ahead.
But I want to add something to this, again, to get back to teaching the audience something. While that made me feel a certain way and may or may not result in additional business for either of us with each other, right? What it also speaks to is the fact that you have systematized this. And that's part of the strategic approach as well, is being consistent with doing the things that we do as our marketing activities to drive more revenue to our businesses.
I do have a system in place for that. And I hate to admit it, but I have a pre-saved card in my card catalog and I replace the front of the card, change the message on the inside of the card so it's personalized to the person I'm sending it to, and then choose a gift based on the person I'm sending the gift to, right? Mm-hmm. So, but it's a system. It's plug and play, drop, done. And it takes me 5 minutes to send them.
By the way, the previous subject line for that email I sent out was, I would have preferred blondies. But
well, now that I know that, I wonder what you're going to get as your thank you gift because you were a guest on my show. There's another lesson there. Ask for what you want. I don't settle for what you don't want. If you want blondies, ask for them. Yeah.
I mentioned in the email as I was sort of talking about this, I've received only 2 gifts from guests on my show. I've sent 1 gift because this is not something I consistently do. So thank you for the reminder that maybe I should. But I sent 1 gift and it was highly personal. So I was on someone's show. We had this connection over both having a background in theater. And I mentioned a very, very famous, and he's a marketing guy. He's actually a Dan Kennedy award-winning, 3-time award-winning marketing guy. And I said to him, oh, well, the very famous Broadway producer, David Baer, who is famous for all of the publicity stunts and marketing stuff he did. And he said, no, I've never heard of him. So I went and I got Howard Kissel's fabulous book called The Abominable Showman about David Merrick, and I sent him a copy of it just because it was related to something that we talked about on the show. And so finding something, it's not always what they like, but something that you like that you might be able to contribute to them. I'm a wine guy, right? Mm-hmm. I send people wine, not necessarily the wine that they like, but something that I want to introduce them to and say, hey, here's a little piece of me that you might be interested in. And I will go and find some, I like super geeky wine, usually with great stories. And so I will not only send them a bottle of wine, but I'll find one that has a fabulous story about, this was made by a guy who, he grew up in the family. He went off and became an attorney, and then his father passed away and he was ready to sell the property. And he decided, you know what, I can't let go of this. This is part of, 3 generations of my family. I'm going to take over and become a winemaker and give up my law career. Isn't that a great thing to send an attorney?
Yeah, that is a great thing to send an attorney. It might make them feel bad. Oh, and you know what I love about that story is that you so personalized it. And you probably don't send wine to people that tell you they don't drink wine. I mean, you just, I'm not a wine drinker. It would be a useless gift because the bottle would never get open or it would get regifted. Mm-hmm. Because I don't drink alcohol. I can't handle it. I am such a lightweight. I told someone the other day that I'm the only person I know who gets hangovers from weed. I live in a state where it's legal, by the way. I get hangovers from weed, so I don't even have that going for me. I can't even do that. You know? So yeah, I just am high on life all the time. Let's just before I forget, I want to say to the listener, theprimes.com with no WW in front of it is the website that David referred to earlier.
And
Theprimes.com.
in addition to strategy, there is so much other really cool stuff there just about how to think about big concepts in a very accessible way. So for all of those solopreneurs out there who work in the business space, or even in the like personal coaching space, there's some concepts there that I think are really cool to be able to visualize using their tools and talk about with the folks you're serving.
Yeah, and you even if you are a solopreneur, you can still learn from the big dogs. When my husband and I launched our business, I worked for the North Face for many years, and when we launched our business, I used the North Face's SKU system to create the SKUs for our furniture. Because it's what I knew. It's what I knew how to do, and I knew we needed to have SKUs, so I figured out a system and I just modeled it after what the North Face did. So yeah, don't be afraid to use the tool, to follow some of the ideas that those big corporations are doing. Just do them on a smaller, lower budget. Don't
I
have a Super Bowl commercial.
Yes. And I would say to a certain extent in marketing, that is actually not how I would pursue things. Right. And here's why.
Oh, well, see, I love it. You're disagreeing with me. Yes. Let's get into it.
I think there's two principles that exist in how the big dogs do it marketing approach that I don't think are applicable to any small organization, whether you're a solopreneur or it's in the small business space. And one is brand focused marketing, right? It is a waste of time and money to go out and brand in the absence of some form of direct response, telling people, here's what I can do for you. Here's how to take advantage of it. Here's what to do next kind of language. You're going to miss the boat on utilizing your time or money effectively if you focus on branding and positioning in the absence of direct response.
So your branding, the term that you're using for branding is not the same as personal branding. Your personality and the way that you do things, like
I would say there's a little overlap, but in general, like the personal branding stuff is appropriate to give people clarity on who you are and what you do, right? So that relates a little bit more to the niche conversation we were having earlier. But there is still a certain aspect of, if you're focusing your time and energy and money on personal branding that doesn't give people a direct call to action to do something, you're wasting some of your money and energy.
Okay. I get your point. And that would include personal branding too.
Yes.
Don't just show up as the chick in the pink wig unless you have something to offer that you want people, unless you have a call to action to go along with the.
I believe that there's a second one, which I don't think is nearly as obvious. And well, actually, I guess there's an extension of the first one, which is, don't waste your time and money and energy on doing things, and we talked about this a little bit earlier, just because everybody else is doing that. So you see that everybody is now trying to be an influencer. Well, is that appropriate for what your goals are, right? Let's go back to the strategy as is to be thing. So are the tactics that you're considering in line with the strategy that you've laid out? If they're not, then don't do that. Right? Yeah. The other thing that big dogs do is that they set a budget. They say, okay, we're spending X amount of dollars a year. And when that money is spent, well, you got to wait till next year's budget before you can spend any money. And here's the problem with that. If the money that's being spent is bringing in more money, why do you stop spending in October when you could continue to spend above and beyond the budget and continue to bring in, $5, $8, $23 for every dollar you spend.
Yeah. Is there a magic number that you would say? It used to be that you spent 20 to 25% of your annual income on your marketing and your advertising. Is that still true?
I think that every statistic like that has to be specific to the business, not even the industry. Right?
Of course you do. Of course you do.
But by the way, the best answer to every question like that is, well, it depends. And then you could spend an hour sort of debating the pros and cons of it. But no, I don't think that it's reasonable to look at a generalized statistic like that. Now, you can use that sort of as a starting point to understand, am I in the right ballpark? But I have seen, budgets that are anywhere from 2-3% all the way up to 40 or 50% spent on marketing. That's dollars, and not necessarily translating time into dollars.
Yeah.
Right. And so there's all kinds of flaws in using a specific statistic like that.
Well, in a solopreneur, it's more about the time than it is about the money. I mean, because there's only so many money hours that one person can put into something.
Mm-hmm.
But I go back to what you said about, is this, if I'm spend $1, am I making $5? Well, yeah, I think most solopreneurs would say, yes, I should continue to spend $1 to make $5. But most solopreneurs would be like, I'm not going to spend $1 to make 50 cents. Not for that budget, not for that kind of budget. It's just not worth it.
Here's the flaw in that. And again, we're going to
I love it when you disagree with me.
We're going to go back to strategy. Okay. Because maybe the strategy is, I'm going to lose money on the front end because I have mechanisms set up to make money on the back end. And so maybe, not always, but maybe it is worth it to lose 50 cents for each lead you bring in, because you know that X percentage of those leads are going to graduate to something where the margin is much, much higher. And therefore it makes sense to buy those customers at a loss.
Yeah. Well, going back to that flyer that we did, my husband and I did when we first launched our custom furniture business, everybody who called bought something. So the return on investment was 25, 30 fold, right? We spent $1 and made probably more than $20 for every dollar we spent. But I think that's times have changed, because it used to be that if I got somebody on the phone, I would eventually get a credit card from them. Like if they called and talked to me, a transaction would happen.
Yep.
And now that isn't true. Like there's lots going on. There's lots of conversations happening that may or may not turn into business. And that's happened in the last maybe 10 years.
Mm-hmm.
So talk about how the sales process, I mean, I'm making you work here. Talk about how we need to continue to adapt in our strategy. We have to have a long-term strategy, but we need to adapt as things change. So, I mean, COVID is an excellent example of that.
All right. Well, let's use the example that you just gave for a moment and talk about how we as consumers have changed, right? And you said over the last 10 or so years, and I think it's probably a little bit longer than that. But what happened was we started having access to research information as consumers that we never had before, right? If you think back to when I was about to say when you and I were kids, but I don't want to make any suggestions there. So if we think back to the, let's say 80s, for example, right? The average consumer had limited information about what was available to them in the market, right? They saw the stuff that was advertised to them. They saw the things that were listed in the local yellow pages. I hope everybody knows what I'm referring to.
There's a really big book that you stood on when you needed to reach something on a high shelf.
Yes. There were all kinds of other resources that were limited in access, right? You could go to the library and research stuff. You could go to the downtown of your town and walk around and see what was displayed in windows of businesses. You could ask people for recommendations. But if you think about how the online world has changed our access to information, and think about the reverse now, as the business has changed our ability to push stuff out there for people to quote unquote discover about us, right? We can be very intentional about getting it in the right places so that the right people do discover it. Well, you need to be able to play into that, and that is part of adapting to the change in the way that people operate. Now, then you bring up COVID, and I think behaviors have changed even more, particularly when it comes to people who didn't spend as much time online or never spent any time on a camera communicating with people, over video. Uh, we're recording this at the beginning of 2023, and there's a massive change happening in content creation right now with artificial intelligence. And that's going to be another shift that as businesses, we have to figure out how to play into. This is particularly important in areas like search engine optimization. We don't know what's going to change there, but we know something's going to change, and it's going to be very significant. And so, yes, this and the speed at which these changes are coming at us is faster and
lightning fast. Well, and I mean, Google is already telling us that they have their competition for open, chat GPT, and Microsoft is already launching chat GPT integrated with Bing. So, it's all happening so fast. Like, we're talking 3 months. This is all happening in the last 3 months. 3 months ago, we didn't have this tool, And now,
those of us who had been playing in the AI writing tool world for since early 2020, with conversion.ai, which became Jarvis, which became Jasper, and every other tool that showed up on AppSumo that I bought and don't use anymore. This stuff has been around a while, and
yes.
those are just the commercial applications. It was around 5 years before that.
Yes, but I'm talking about the last 3 months. It's just exploded. It's like that video. Have you seen that video? The guy who's all dancing all by himself out in the field. No one's dancing, and then somebody comes and dances with him, and then there's 2 people dancing, and then the next thing you know, there's a 500 people dancing. That's what happened with AI writing. Everybody's dancing in the field now, and so some people will continue to dance, and some people will say, this isn't any fun. It's just a matter. What's really funny is that this whole concept of being a prompt engineer, you create prompts for these AI engines. So I work with a company called Promptings. The name of the company that I use to send the cards and the brownies is called Promptings, and prompt engineering is what I do. I hacked on Promptings and send cards and gifts.
They've stolen the name.
I've been a prompt engineer for over 10 years. Oh, I love it. I love it. And but what ChatGPT did was it made it something that everybody could access. Because I've known about Jarvis forever. I just didn't play with it, right? I didn't want to pay to play with something that I didn't know whether or not I'd like it. And because OpenAI is open right now, I mean, it's, if you want the paid version of it, that's available too, but it was open source. So I got to actually dig into it. And now that I've played with it for a while and I've learned how to write prompts, I've learned how to be a prompt engineer in AI too. And I've taught it how to talk like me. Like, it spits out things now that sound just like I wrote them, because I've learned how to make it do that. Right. Now, maybe I would invest in Jarvis or one of those programs, because I didn't, so yes, I know it's been around for a long time, but it's this fire that took off in the last 3 days. It's like a wildfire, or 3 months. It's like a wildfire. Yes, those words will come out of my mouth. Okay. I don't think we really talked about this. We talked a lot about strategy and a lot about tactics, but I would love to know, since you're totally into AppSumo, what is your favorite marketing tool? What's the thing that you do that you can't live without? The tool that you have that you wouldn't be able to live without?
Well, the tool is strategic thinking, is what it is.
Oh, and so how does somebody learn that? Because a lot of folks don't have that kind of brain.
Yeah, and I think to a certain extent it requires discipline, right? Because if you think back to what I was referring to earlier about the way that we operate as a society when it comes to marketing and promotion of business, right? We are very much focused on tactics, on if any business owner and I we were talking, and I would say, what do you do for marketing? Their answer isn't, well, I sit down at the beginning of each year and I plot out where I would like to be at the end of the year, and then I consider all of the different means by which I can get there, and which type of customer is going to be most profitable to me, and what assets I have to allocate to be able to attract and convert those specific types of customers. Oh, and which product or service I have the largest margin on, and therefore how I can put those out into the market and convert the most people around those, right? Nobody's thinking about that stuff. The answer is, oh, I do Facebook ads.
Oh, do we have time to talk about Facebook marketing?
It's your show. We have
So if you ask me that question, I have to be perfectly honest with you. If you said, how do you do marketing? I would say, well, I have a podcast and I put the podcast out there and I turn it into YouTube shorts, and I do it, I do classes on Thursdays and I turn those classes into videos and then I turn those into YouTube shorts. So I would say my marketing is YouTube shorts. I would just give you that answer. That's my answer. Sometimes I use them on Instagram. Sometimes I don't. I don't know. Isn't that awful? Isn't that a terrible answer? But I know.
But that is the challenge that we have, because if my point earlier was marketing is all about revenue generation, right? Let's start with the big question. Do you have a clear number that at the end of the year you're trying to hit? Okay. And then you work backwards.
Yeah.
And so if I were to start asking any business owner, whether, and we don't need to use your business as an example, but okay, great. You have a podcast that's out there. You're occasionally on Instagram and you're on YouTube Shorts. Tell me how each of those activities contributes to hitting that number at the end of the year. Can we map that out?
No. The only thing that I do that generates revenue for me is teaching my free classes and converting people who show up to my free classes into paid clients, and showing people how to spread gratitude through greeting cards and gifts, and them signing up for the prompting service that sends the cards and gifts. Those are the only two things that generate revenue for me.
All right. So I want to go back to answering the question that you asked me, and I went off on this tangent because I didn't tell you what tools I most like or appreciate. I think that any business these days needs one thing in specifically, and possibly two, right? The one thing is a communication channel for people who are prospects and for people who are customers. Right?
You're talking about the list.
Yes. And what you didn't hear me say was you need an email marketing tool. Okay. You didn't hear me say you need to have a list that you can send direct mail to. You didn't hear me say you need to have a Facebook group or a Mighty Networks account or a circle.so account or any of those things, right?
Yeah.
What I said was you need to have a means by which to consistently, probably is the other piece,
that works for you.
Yes.
Right. That works for you. I love that answer.
Okay. And I said, and there's a second one. It's you need a tool to be able to capture the contact information in the first place. They may be one and the same tool.
Can I just say that I have all of that in place?
And it's on YouTube Shorts.
No. I have a system for capturing leads. I have a system for following up with people. I have systems in place. I do. I have systems. So but if you were to ask me point blank about marketing, that's not the thing that immediately goes to my, and I teach marketing to people, right? I teach about knowing your ideal client and figuring out what your long-term goals are. I teach that. But if you were to, if we were just to have the conversation where you said, what do you do for marketing? The first thing that I would think of would be the podcast and the YouTube channel. Mm-hmm. But that's not where that's just, the external. That's like the television ad, right? Yeah. I have a lead capture system that is rather dynamic. you've participated in my leaf capture system. It's a rather dynamic system. So, yeah, I have all that in place, but that's not the first thing that comes to mind. So I guess the lesson here for the solopreneur who's tuning in is that the marketing on the face, what you see on TV, is the face. It's the stuff that's inside the TV that makes the picture show up on the TV that matters. And David's right. It's how you gather and communicate with people.
I'm thinking about all of the different activities that any business must engage in, and those are the two elements. I can't think of anything else that's essential. And while I have my preferred tools for each of those things, that's irrelevant because I don't know any particular listener's, situation. And I got to tell you, I use some incredibly sophisticated tools for the work that I've done, but I've been spending time in the creator space over on Twitter and Notion and building, products, templates that I can go out and on Twitter sell somebody something. Well, I'm using entirely free tools for that, right? I'm using Substack. I'm using Notion to host stuff. I'm using Gumroad to collect the money. And those are things that anybody can easily go and set up an account. Now, they don't have the sophistication that Keep or HubSpot or any of the, sort of the high end CRM and management, communication, marketing, automation tools have, but that's not necessary for that type of business.
No, and you are right. It's about choosing the one that's right for you. All right, we need to wrap up. This has been such a great conversation. I love it when people don't agree with me. Because the most important thing I think about being a business owner is learning new things and maybe having paradigm shifts in your thought process.
I disagree. No, I'm kidding. Actually, that I do agree with.
Because you if you want to stay in business for 20 something years, you have to keep adapting and changing. Things change. AI didn't exist when I launched my business. We were the first custom furniture business who offered the furniture completely online without a brick and mortar location. We were the first, right? And now everybody sells their furniture online. I can truly say that I am a digital marketing pioneer because there was nobody doing what we did when we started it. Okay, so we do need to wrap up though. I could ask you questions forever, and we didn't even dig into Facebook. All right, okay, spend 2 minutes on it. Is Facebook advertising alive or dead? Where is it going? Where do you see it going? How do you see AI affecting it? Answer that in 2 minutes.
There's so much to unpack there, but the answer is for the right offer to the right audience, it is still a really good channel. There's a lot less competition there right now because a lot of advertisers are abandoning Google and Facebook specifically for other channels. TikTok is like an advertising channel that has pulled away a lot of the advertising dollars. But then there's also the political backlash from Facebook and other things that have gotten advertisers to.
I thought you were going to say the political backlash from TikTok, because I personally wouldn't ever be on TikTok.
I've never actually. I don't have an account. I don't know what it's like.
Well. I just don't want the Chinese government having access to my stuff.
Yes, there's that concern as well. But I would say that in general, Facebook has a diminished capabilities compared to what they had a few years ago, as they've sort of pulled back some of the targeting capabilities, and as Apple has limited their ability to sort of track people once they're off the site. But it is still one of the channels that is my go-to channel to start and test things, because it has targeting capabilities that are much more dialed in and much more effective at being able to get quick answers to, is this going to work or not, than pretty much any other channel out there.
That's a good answer.
I'm glad we agree on something.
I recently met a dude who told me that his gig was that he has a way to geolocate a person and then target advertising to them based on a place that they've been. So let's say that your target customer, okay, I'm going to say that I'm trying to make something up that I could actually use as a real world example. I'm going to say that you own a pizza shop, and you know that your target customer loves to buy weed. So his software pings your phone, and if you go into a certain weed shop, the pizza company advertising starts to get delivered to that phone.
Yep.
Based on just you entering that weed shop with your phone.
There's two pieces to this. There's either proximity or something called geofencing, but those two capabilities can do that.
And that is just mind-blowing to me.
Yeah.
It's mind-blowing to me. So there is no privacy out there, guys.
Well, so we're running a campaign with a client of ours right now who is down in Texas. They have a Christian camp, and we are trying to increase their enrollment for high school aged campers, right, in one of their older camps. And we are looking at targeting high school addresses. We are looking at targeting churches around certain neighborhoods that are in the right sort of affluent neighborhoods, that we're going to be able to target people based on the appropriateness for the offer, right? And so we are absolutely doing that to great effect because of the messaging that we're putting in front of people. Now, I have no idea who any of those people are, and the platforms don't either. But they know that, but the algorithms and the data within those platforms are able to put the message that we want to put in front of the individual we want to see it. And that's really what matters. So yes, there is this question of privacy, but I have, as the advertiser, no idea who those people are until the point that they raise their hand and they say, tell me more, by showing up on a lead capture page where I can then communicate with them further.
There's a whole rabbit hole that we could go down on that conversation. It's just it's moving at the speed of light, and things are, Apple may say, no, you can't do that anymore. And Facebook has to dial things back, but that doesn't mean that they're not still happening. It's out there. Okay. Oh gosh, I wish I could talk to you longer, but we need to wrap up. So this is my favorite part of the interview, and I hope it's yours too. And I hope that I did succeed in turning you into a gratitude geek. Please share your moment of gratitude. For whom or what are you most grateful?
Oh, it has nothing to do with the fact that we were recording this on February 14th, but it is my wife, who I met back in college in the 1990s, and we have been together pretty much ever since. And she has allowed me to be both successful and unsuccessful as a solo entrepreneur and a business owner, and supported my whims and my curiosities and exploration, and challenges my ideas. So, Kandas, you're not the only one I disagree with sometimes. And I love the fact that I have the support from her and that she's in my life.
Thanks for tuning in to Gratitude Geek, where we help DIY marketers attract raving fans and repeat buyers. Don't forget to check out the show notes at gratitudegeek.com for links to all the resources mentioned in this episode. And if you enjoyed it, please leave a review on your favorite podcast platform. Our theme music is by Rev Brock and Soul Lily. I'm Kandas Rodarte, reminding you that gratitude is like manure. It's just a pile of poo until you spread it around. Stay groovy, my friend.
Stay groovy.